The history of slavery in the modern era begins with one of the most dramatic and tragic shifts in human society, the moment when European colonial powers sought to justify the forced labor of millions of people, first in the Americas and then in Africa. In the middle of the 16th century, a major intellectual and moral confrontation took place in Spain, known as the Valladolid Debate. It was held in 1550 to 1551 and organized by King Charles V. The debate centered around a disturbing but central question for European colonizers: did indigenous peoples of the Americas have souls, and could they be enslaved? On one side stood Juan Gins de Sepulveda, who argued that Native Americans were naturally inferior, irrational, and almost subhuman. He claimed that enslaving them was not only justifiable but necessary for their civilization and conversion to Christianity. Opposing him was Bartolomé de las Casas, a Dominican friar and former colonist turned defender of indigenous rights. Las Casas maintained that Native Americans were fully human, capable of reason, faith, and self-rule. He denounced the cruelty of the Spanish conquest and demanded an end to forced labor. Although Las Casas's arguments carried moral weight and marked the first serious defense of indigenous human rights in European political thought, the debate had little impact in practice. Despite some legal reforms, indigenous slavery continued under other names, such as the encomienda system. Native peoples in the Americas were still exploited for mining and plantation labor, often under extremely violent conditions. Furthermore, indigenous populations were devastated by diseases brought from Europe, as well as by war, famine, and forced displacement. Faced with the collapse of the native labor force, European colonizers turned increasingly to Africa to supply the labor they needed for their expanding colonies. But slavery was not a European invention; it already existed in many parts of the world, including Africa and the Arab Muslim world. African kingdoms had long practiced slavery in local forms, often linked to war, debt, or punishment. For centuries, the Trans-Saharan and Indian Ocean slave trades had brought African captives to North Africa and the Middle East. The Europeans, however, transformed this ancient institution into an industrial-scale transatlantic system. They entered into agreements with African rulers and merchants, trading goods such as firearms, alcohol, and textiles in exchange for human beings. These enslaved people were then shipped across the Atlantic in horrific conditions to work on plantations in Brazil, the Caribbean, and North America. This became the infamous triangular trade, connecting Europe, Africa, and the Americas in a global network of exploitation. The human cost of this system is staggering. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, historians estimate that 12 to 13 million Africans were forcibly deported to the Americas. During the voyage known as the Middle Passage, at least 1.5 to 2 million people died, packed into overcrowded ships with little air, food, or water. Mortality rates were extremely high due to disease, malnutrition, and violence. Many more died during slave raids or shortly after arriving in the colonies. Some researchers suggest that 1 in 5 people captured for the trade died before ever reaching a slave market. This trade in human lives left deep scars on global history.